Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the long-awaited retrospective on Disney's Wayward Prince, a man who boldly stepped out of the mouse house and proceeded to reinvent the medium while the competition was spinning its wheels. From genetically enhanced rats to secret princesses, from a group of friends to a family finding each other, things are going to the dogs. Mark your calendars because it's Bluth-Tember!
Yeah.
All right, and tonight, folks, we are breaking down the 1986 iconic film that put Don Bluth on the map in a big bad way. This is An American Tail, the original. Oh boy. All right, so Dragon, I got a lot out of this one rewatching it. I gotta say, I got so much out of it that I decided to rewatch it a second time today. So I've watched it twice today. So it's very much fresh in my head. I have a lot of the imagery still stuck in there, and the themes and the violin rolling around on the brain. I should be good to go. And Dragon, I got to admit, this movie is very ambitious, and I respect it a ton. I respect the hell out of this movie. And I do think it is definitely like I very much see why this movie is pretty much Don Bluth's big kind of like game changer for him. Like Secret of Nim was a great cult classic, but this was like a blockbuster of a pretty epic level at the time. And Dragon, I think it really all comes down to that character that we'll break down in just a minute here, folks. But really, that's basically my thesis on American Tail is sort of twofold. One, you've got the character of Fievel Mouskowitz himself, and he's so iconic with that with the red sweater and the blue hat that I honestly think that design is just pretty much perfect. It makes for a nearly instantly iconic animated character, and just all the scenes with him. Like, just rewatching this movie, it really struck me how many moments with Fievel are just like locked in your conscious. You know what I mean? Because it's just like there's so many little moments and freeze frames of this movie with Fievel because he's so expressive. I really got a lot out of that rewatching it. And the other thing I got a lot out of rewatching Dragon was this film is I mean, I used to think this was one of the more light and fluffy of the Blue films, and I was wrong. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Dragon, this film has some dark imagery on an almost subconscious level. I mean, I think thematically it might. I mean, thematically it does carry some heavy stuff too. I mean, I think all across the board. I must say, like looking at this from an adult point of view, and kind of like, of course, looking at this, you can't help but think about the immigration and the American dream, and that sort of sentiment is like dripping through this movie. Like this might be one of the Dragon. This is basically the Godfather for kids when it comes to embedding that whole like I believe in America dream in the hope of immigrants coming to America. You know what I mean? I know that's an odd comparison, but I'm saying like this is that iconic. Like I cannot think of another animated movie that really tackles that American dream angle so head on. So I respect the hell out of this movie, Dragon. I think this movie has a messy as hell second act. And that's really where we're going to kind of like talk about I don't know. It's interesting because I feel like this movie mirrors All Dogs Go to Heaven in a couple ways. With the dark imagery, with the seemingly playful title, and also just kind of like the fact that the second act is a little bit of a train wreck from a storytelling perspective. But that's just my opinion, Dragon. I'm curious to see if you have other things to say. And also, one other note, of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention that I did not grow up with this movie, folks. I maybe watched it one or two times on Cartoon Network Theater when that was a thing, but really that's about it. My big exposure to the Fievel character was Fievel Goes West. Fievel Goes West was like a maybe I'm not even exaggerating when I say it might have been like a top 5 VHS in my rotation as a kid. I mean, I wore the hell out of that tape. So when it comes to the American Tail franchise, this is probably the more bold and ambitious work, I honestly think Five Goes West is just straight up more entertaining, and it's got a more solid plot structure to it. That's just kind of me. I don't know. Again, nostalgia might play a key part of that for me, but we'll see. Dragon, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on this movie?
Well, first off, I think you were looking for Godfather Part 2 when you were looking for that analogy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I honestly look at Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 as like one big epic.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. It does kind of fit that wonderfully into the other in a way. And
Yeah, yeah.
Godfather 2 simultaneously see excellent sequel as well as really solid prequel as well. It's kind of a double threat in that regard. Anywho, yeah. So American Tail. American Tail. Looking at it's kind of Bluth's evolution into his first steps into the big game animated filmmaking category, as it were. This is one of the original separation reunion stories. It's very much like we
Oh
take
yeah.
parent away. And of course, like when I think separation, kind of reunion story, I think Finding Nemo. You don't have a Find Nemo without kind of like getting your foot in the door with a movie like this.
This is very much the original Finding Nemo, Dragon. You're absolutely right. Finding Nemo would not exist as a story without this thing.
Yeah, it's if let me put it this way, if Nim is the film that should have been that should be seen, American Tail is the movie that got all the attention that Secret of Nim should have gotten.
Ooh. So you're kind of on the same page of like I definitely think Secret of Nim like through and through is a far superior movie to this, if I'm being blunt.
To an extent, let me put it this way: I absolutely echo
I
your
don't want to.
sentiments.
I don't want to come down too harsh on it because, like I said, I do think this film has a lot of redeeming factors. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I was getting at is that, like you, I do echo a lot of your nostalgic sentiments. In that, for me, again, I did have American Tail. I did watch it, but let's be honest, I was going to Five Goes West, and we
I
recently
think it's kind of like a classic Rescuers Down Under situation.
Yes and no. Here's the thing: you and I we rewatched Five Goes West. Oddly enough, rewatched that before we rewatched this. In the sense of things, when we rewatched that, I tell you, Five Goes West, tremendous third act. All the fun, nostalgic memories of Act 3 still held up like gangbusters. Act 3 of that movie is wonderful.
Oh,
First two acts, not so much.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this movie, on the other hand, American Tail. American Tail. Obviously, Act One is definitely the strongest element. I think thematically, got a lot of really great stuff going on there. Let me put it this way: American Tail is a very pathos-driven story, but I think it's a little distracted in places. And as T kind of circled upon, Act Two is where you get most of your distractions at. And basically, as I'm going to kind of like seed in through the background, there were certain edits made on this movie. Now, again, these are edits like when you watch it the first time, you're never going to know. You're never going to notice these things. But, years later, looking back at it, so I couldn't quite place my finger on what was wrong here. And I kind of fill in the blanks. Like, oh, I guess that's what's kind of wrong with it. Yeah, we're kind of, it feels like do you get that feeling at all when you're watching this movie? You feel like there's something kind of missing from it. I mean, there's a good movie there, but we're just missing something.
Yes, absolutely. Like I'll give you a good example, Dragon. Just to throw it out there, the fact that we have this weird Honest John character who's only in one scene and he serves nothing to the point of the movie, but yet they make a big deal out of him.
Yep. I mean, look, say whatever you want. I think we're in a similar boat here. American Tail, I do see the artistry. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate more so what it kind of does as a story and kind of like, again, the separation story of it all, and of course the thematic parallels and the basically what it's doing for Bluth as a storyteller, but especially the immigration stuff. I think is the strongest part of the entire film as a whole. The immigration stuff is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a classic. You can say whatever you will. You can't take away this film is absolutely it's a classic. It does deserve to be lauded, but not as much as something like Secret of Nim. By no means as much as that.
I will go as far as to say it's like, I don't know, it's between this and All Dogs is kind of like the shakiest of the films in our selection. But of course, you and I probably have more nostalgia for All Dogs than we do for this.
Oh, certainly. I will fully admit, All Dogs probably. Again, I'll see how it holds up. It's been years since I've rewatched All Dogs.
It's not going to hold up too well on a rewatch.
I'm not expecting it to. I'm not. Look, I've rewatched some sections from that movie, and I've watched my favorite parts. But you know what? I have a feeling it's not going to hold. I know it's not going to hold up, but what? I'm sure. I'm sure, but I'm sure it's gonna be. I'm hoping it's at least gonna be as entertaining as I remember, though. We'll see. We'll see.
All right.
Point being,
I
American
will
Tail.
give All Dogs this. All Dogs, out of all the movies that we're talking about, is definitely the most original premise out of everything.
Most certainly, most certainly. All right, so all that said, American Tail. Let's start to break it down here. But first, let's rewind the clocks back.
We're going to take you back to the past. All right.
A little bit of background. Okay, so Secret of Nim comes out, and Nim again, very well made movie, very well appreciated movie for sure. Unfortunately, not appreciated. History again, as I mentioned, is kind of glossed over Nim at times. And I feel it's a little unfair. The point being, Nim kind of broke the bank in more ways than one. That it did perform. Don't get me wrong, it could have performed, maybe a little bit better. So Nim comes out again, pretty much like Disney making Snow White. He kind of kind of the Disney's folly of it all, in the sense of he's really kind of we had the mortgage houses to get this movie made, and that we kind of came out of it by the skin of our teeth, but still we made a profit. But what really hurt Don Bluth is the fact that despite Nim's success, it was again kind of publicly kind of like if you're an animation fan, I'm sure you were going to love it. If you were just for public consumption, as Tiki said last time, a little too dark for the kiddies. You're probably going to have crying children being taken out by their mothers.
Secret of Nim is like a weird movie where it's kind of like it's almost like it just veers ever so slightly on that Ralph Bakshi family picture scale. You know what I mean?
Certainly. So
like
it's
just barely a family movie. Anyways, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so Nim comes out again, doesn't quite perform publicly as well as they would have hoped, and the thing that really hurts is there was an animation strike in '82.
Mm-hmm.
That really hurt Bluth, and essentially Don Bluth Productions went bankrupt. Ended up going bankrupt because of this. Yeah. Womp womp.
But of course, as we all know, the Don Bluth Productions is not the only company that Don Bluth has ever been involved in.
Yes, Don Bluth. His middle name should be Phoenix, because the man just keeps rising from the ashes of financial disaster in terms of studio kind of starting trying to find a place to keep the lights on at. Basically, the man will just basically run everyone dry creatively, and the place just kind of crumble around. Like, oh man, oh well, let's build another one. Go on. So this leads to, in the best of ways, of course, that leads to Sullivan Bluth. Essentially, a man named Sullivan comes in, saves the day.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And Dragon, in my opinion, Sullivan Bluth is probably the best incarnation of Don Bluth, just from a consistency point of view.
That's true. So Sullivan Bluth comes along. Essentially, he's kind of Bluth has rise from the ashes. He's working with Sullivan here, and ultimately, the way they kind of secured themselves for a while is that they moved to Ireland. Apparently, it's I forget if it was a cost-effective measure or what, but the point is they moved. Eventually, they moved the production to Ireland. I believe Don Bluth was there for a number of movies. I'm not sure how many, but I think at least for another movie or so, or another productions. So let me frame it like this. Okay, so Secret Nim comes out again. They kind of break the bank, and we have the strike of '82 happen. Basically, while Bluth's getting back on his feet with Sullivan Bluth, kind of in the interim. Bluth is doing these, Bluth is doing Dragon's Lair. He's doing some shorts. He's kind of doing some stuff in the interment time, Then Sullivan Bluth kind of gets founded, and we move to Ireland. And while we're kind of mulling over the next project, David Kirshner, he had an idea for American Tail, essentially, but he had the idea for it as a TV special. Because, again, we're kind of working on the smaller scale since the last movie we did kind of broke the bank. Our bank, not exactly the bank we were hoping for, but I don't know if we should go for another movie quite yet. But Don Bluth, he saw potential in this as a feature. Yeah, let's do it as a feature, man. All the while, you remember Jerry Goldsmith, do you?
Of course.
Of course, wonderful Jerry Goldsmith, and you remember I mentioned he had worked on Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, funny I should have mentioned that because, of course, Jerry Goldsmith, while he was working on Poltergeist, he was telling someone who was very integral to the making of Poltergeist, Steven Spielberg, who was on set, telling him, I guess just kind of chit-chatting Spielberg, talking about, oh man, I was just, hey Jerry, what'd you do over the weekend? Well, Steven, I'll tell you, I did the score for.
So basically, it's an episode of the Blockbuster podcast.
Sure. Essentially, while Spielberg was doing that, Jerry Goldsmith mentioned Secret of Nim. Spielberg was really intrigued by this. He watched it, and he found the movie very good, very interesting. And you got to remember, this is before Roger Rabbit. This is Spielberg's first foray. Before any of the animated, before Amblin really got into animation, presumably this is what hooked Spielberg on the animation for Amblin.
And I could see why, because this is I mean, I could see this being a super personal story for Spielberg. I imagine that's the case, right?
Well, I'm saying, remember, Nim is the one that kind of impressed him, and then he kind of works
No,
on
I
this.
know, I know Nim impressed it, but I'm saying like American Tail, I'm sure he was just jumping up and down to work on that.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, that's a funny. It's funny you should mention that. So, again, as I mentioned, this is Spielberg's first animated project. This is, Fievel, of course, was the Yiddish name for Spielberg's grandfather, very famously.
Right, exactly.
Now, I would imagine that Spielberg basically showing up. He wants to work with Don Bluth on this movie. Now, again, I don't know how much was formulated at this time, because here's the interesting thing, Tiki. Spielberg was very involved in the creative process of this movie. So, like, when you get a name like Fievel, I don't know how much of that's Spielberg. So I don't know how much of the movie was. I presume it was always The Immigrant's Tale. So I don't know exactly if it was always Russian, kind of a Russian Jew sort of thing at the start. I'm not sure if that was always the direct lineage. I would assume so. So I would assume that was a big hook for Spielberg. I imagine. So I can't prove it, but
yeah.
Anywho, so point is we get some traction here. Spielberg is in on the project, which is always a good sign, it would seem. We had some, of course, this big reunion movie, and of course they went to some big reunion writers at the time. We went to Judy Fruberg and Tony Geiss, and these guys. They were the writing team on Follow That Bird.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Dragon, Follow That Bird is definitely a movie I've been meaning to revisit.
Oh, it's good. Trust me. It pretty much holds up. It's still really it's good. All right, so we have the writing team in place. Everything's in place here. So they had $6.5 million budget, which again is a little more than they had on Nim. They went a little over budget, so it kind of went inflated up to probably like around $9 million, I'd imagine. But point being, now here's the interesting thing. So again, as I mentioned, Spielberg was very involved in the developmental process, and this is Spielberg's first animated movie. So Spielberg was a little overeager when they were making this movie, as in Spielberg had a lot of notes. He wanted to be really involved without knowing exactly how the process of animation works. So he would say, "Why,
you
guys, why don't we
just do another take, right?"
Exactly. So he's thinking, "Hey guys, can we do that one over again?" Or like, hey, I don't know if he would necessarily give that note. The point being, Spielberg would have all these ideas without realizing how many like months this would take for a minor change like to add to the scenes and et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, like, I don't really view it as like Spielberg like just kind of like the kind of the blithering like, oh, let's just do stuff. I don't want to
imbecile in the room full of professionals.
Yeah, I don't want to view it as like Spielberg the novelist, but more so like Spielberg just kind of the overeager kid to do an animated movie. It's like Spielberg's just he's a kid in the candy store with an animated movie. He's like, oh boy, let's do this without fully knowing the process. It's his first time. We'll cut him a break. He made E.T. and let's call me nuts. Let's give him a break. All right. Of course, it's a very secret project too. Do you hear about this?
A secret of Nim?
No. It was very lock and key project. This movie.
Oh, the fact that American Tail was a secret project? No, I did not hear about that.
I don't know how intentional this was, but presumably they wanted to blindside Disney with this, so they really kept it under lock and key. And of course, when this movie came out, it absolutely blindsided Disney with the other mouse movie of the year. Do you remember that mouse movie was?
Great Mouse Detective, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, like I said, Dragon, I think the design of Fievel is just, there's something about it that is just instantly iconic. It's just like, he just like instantly deserves a spot in like the animated character Hall of Fame for that design.
Well, it is funny you mentioned that design, of course, because Fievel did I don't know how long this happened, because of course it eventually would go to E.T., but Fievel was the mascot for Amblin for a stretch.
Yeah, and I would consider Fievel probably to be the unofficial mascot for just Don Bluth's work as a whole.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's break down the story. So, Dragon, like you said, this is very much a traditional, like lost and then found, a separation story, if you will. Dragon, what gives this movie so much heft for me is just one thing I really didn't realize is how hopeless it looks like from both of the group's perspectives. The fact that the father literally sees Fievel pretty much drown Dragon. So it's not like that's one of the things that I totally just forgot until my rewatch. I'll admit that, Dragon. The fact that the father is not just dealing with the loss of a child. In his mind, he is very much in it, dealing with the death of a child. And I mean, God, there are like so many heartbreaking scenes with Papa Mouskowitz, Dragon. I don't want to get into it too much because we'll break him down as a character, but I just think he really represents kind of like the emotional heft of the story. You know what I mean?
That he does. That he does. And you know what's funny? I'm with you there because I was rewatching the movie. I remember, okay, they get separated. I forgot just quite how drawn out and harrowing that sequence was. But like Mouskowitz is like, Papa Mouskowitz is going up there and trying to save Fievel and everything. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought it was more like, oh no, Fievel, don't go out there. Then he gets swept up in the thing. I didn't imagine like the whole like, oh, he's almost got him.
By the way, the waves that vaguely look like demons.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, that's a genius idea too. Oh, yeah. I heard Spielberg was tense about that too. By the way, the whole like the waves turning into demons thing.
I could imagine he would be.
So, let's see. Oh, by the way, just should have mentioned this earlier. There were edits made to the stories. Well, I'm sorry, I'll mention it here. That's what I meant to get to. Okay, so the waves almost didn't make the cut, but here are a few things that really didn't make the cut. So they had to make a lot of alterations. This is kind of the missing component I'm talking about with the story here. There are a few things that I feel like we're kind of, again, they're kind of that I can't place my finger on it quite, but you'll notice. We like for example, when Fievel is entered into a sweatshop. Yes, we have a young child thrown into a sweatshop in a kids movie, folks. Like for example, a lot of the sweatshop stuff was edited out of the movie, like the family meeting tiger, like before the big kind of rescue moment, before the big reunion moment, and basically all the stuff with the baby completely gone. We had to cut out a lot of stuff from the movie here. You just kind of get the bare minimum of story, and I don't know, like elements like that. I can't say officially. Like I feels like these were good. These for the most part, these were good things to take out, but I mean stuff like the sweatshop. I don't need to see the sweatshop, but still, it feels like he got out of that way too easy, you know.
He did. And that's what I'm talking about with the messiness of the second act, Dragon, is the fact that like the second act is really episodic. It's just kind of like a series of misadventures, and I don't know. Like I feel like if the second act was more just in the sweatshop, it would have been a little bit more oppressive and dark, sure, but I feel like it would have, like at least on a narrative level, held together a bit tighter.
Yeah. Earlier, we were circle back to a point you were making, Tiki. It was about a big thing in Bluth's works up to this point. These feature works like Secret and Man. This a big element of it is perspective, POV, and of course here we do a dual POV, which is really interesting. We kind of did that a little bit with Secret and Man, but it was really kind of scaled down to like it was just a farm, and again the stakes were so small yet felt so big. It's like, is the plow gonna strike? That's about it. Like, is a man gonna plow a lawn? Essentially, is a man gonna plow a field?
Yeah.
And again, they don't wrong. Those are great dramatic stakes. Again, I cite the opening of Toy Story 4 for a comparison on that. But I mean, here we had.
Hang on, RC.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Whenever you mention the opening of Toy Story 4, I just automatically have to say that. All right.
Anywho, no. But here, it's like Bluth doing the kind of this dual scale trick, so well here, but paralleling with the American Dream story, which is just an ingenious idea, where it's just kind of this sly commentary on, essentially the big New York migration then that we had, especially around like 1885, I suppose, is basically when the movie's kind of set here. Basically, it's like we're in New York, and of course, when you think New York, usually when you think old time in New York, you think like the 30s, right, or the 30s or the 40s. When you think of old time in New York, it takes it even further back, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We go to like basically the big message of the movie with the immigration stuff is really cool. Is the fact that this is the immigrants made New York what we think of today. That's kind of the message of the movie. And I really thought that was really cool. That basically
to quote Hamilton, immigrants, we get the job done. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
But I'm making sense here, right? I mean, Yeah,
Yes,
the
you are.
fact,
I'm just being silly. Just when I'm silly, Dragon, don't just assume that you're not making sense, all right? You know me.
yeah, I thought it was a really neat idea that we have like all these different sects. Again, like what kind of makes New York kind of the culture kind of boiling pot that it is again is
Absolutely, yeah.
all these different cultures and everything. Of course, the classic
All
immigrant
these
story.
different ethnic stereotypes.
Of course, like the thing we look at today. Again, in some ways, American Tail is kind of a relevant story today, even more than it was then. In some ways, but
I
again, it also
absolutely
works.
think it is.
But again, I love that you don't need to look at it in that way, but you can, and it would still hold up in that regard, and that's really neat. So again, it still has some layers to it. It still has like some punch in it.
Hmm.
So let's see. There is a very Pinocchio-esque kind of turn with the separation and the reunion stories. It feels very Pinocchio-esque, especially
How
given the
so?
fact. Well, let me put it this way. Of course, for we have a section in Pinocchio. Of course, he's taken away from Geppetto, and of course, he's misled by another honest John.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
And in doing so, he's pretty much separated from Geppetto until the whale scene in that movie. So pretty much most of Act. I want to say I can't remember if it's like all. Yeah, it'd have to be all of Act Two, right? Because all of Act Two is like Honest
Oh,
John.
it's
We have
got to
like,
be all of that too. Yeah.
Act One we bring the life. Act Two is Honest John onward, and then of course Act Three is the whale.
Uh-huh.
Point being, looking at it that way, again, like for a whole act, we separate him from, him from his family, which would be Geppetto. In this case, we separate Fievel from his family, and of course, in going forward, it's like he just kind of has he runs into these misadventures until the ultimate reunion. In this case, we drag out the reunion to the very end, which kind of the Nemo tactic, if you will.
So I honestly, like I said, Fievel as a character works really well, but I feel like his story in the movie is a little episodic, and I honestly find the stuff with the family more compelling.
I think for me the most emotional moments. A lot of people would say somewhere out there, right? It says,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
not
pay.
even close.
Yeah, for me, I would say there's a moment. I don't want to get. Well, there's a one moment with Papa Moskowitz that for me is the most emotional moment in the entire film.
It might. I have a moment with Papa Moskowitz that's the most emotional moment in the entire film for me.
It might be the same moment. We'll see. We'll see. That's what I'm saying. Like there are some really great contenders for moments. Like, here's like an example of just some other like really kind of striking moments too. Like I think we represent the Russian Jews really well. Like the Russian Jewish people of the day. I think we represent them really well in the opening. Although in Act One we're kind of essentially in Russia and we have the Kozak sequence. Oh my God, the Kozak sequence.
Yeah, that is like a pretty intense scene to like just really start this thing off. And it really does kind of set the stakes of like, okay, we need to get out of here. Like, there's no way we can stay here.
And again, it's Bluth getting ambitious with that dual parallel. Or okay, as the Cossacks attack, we have the Cossack cats, which are even more terrifying from a mouse's perspective. And again, you could see it as silly. Okay, we put a cat in that. We put a cat in a little Russian hat. Ha ha ha. But no, it's much more than that. We didn't just we didn't just like the cats are the bad guys too, and they're themed. It's basically Bluth kind of playing with the expectation. Oh yeah, I know visually we're kind of cartoony here, but no, we're gonna make this a legit parallel of okay, terrifying as it basically we can get away with like a serious like we can't sell a movie on like an actual
Dragon. I'm just gonna say what you're wanting to say, Dragon. Cats equals Nazis in this movie,
essentially, yeah.
and it's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, and we can't get and that's the thing we can't get away with basically we can't get away with that in a regular movie. If, like okay, we can't just have like a legit at this time we can't have like a legit family going up against our Nazi-esque foe in this case, kind of our Kazakh foe at the start here, but we can get away
Unless
with
you're
it.
the sound of music.
True.
I'm sorry.
Unless it's kind of again through the visage of a cartoon, where okay, it's cartoon mice, we can get away with it. It works so well with Secret of Nim. This is kind of everything kind of come together story wise as Bluth is kind of as developing as a storyteller here. We're okay. I got away with a lot playing with rats and mice, and here I can do it again, and I can get away with even more great subject matter. I can start with the shocking, and I can get away with the shocking, and I can build in kind of more intellectual parallel once we get to New York and kind of say what we're going to say about the big kind of migration to New York. Again, it's all relative, I guess, is what I'm getting at here.
All right.
Yeah. So we spoke of disparity. We speak of the other side of disparity. Hope is a big element of this movie. Like never in hope. Like the never say never aspect of the whole movie, I think is really good too.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I find the stuff with the family a little bit more compelling because, like I said, the stuff with the family is pretty much them taking death head on. And with Fievel, it's just kind of like, oh, I'll find them eventually. So, I mean, you are right. Like, to me, I feel like that's kind of like where the more saccharine elements of this movie come from is the hope angle. Like, that's like, like it is iconic, the somewhere out there of it all.
Are you
But I don't.
saying it might?
Go ahead.
Are you saying it might have been a little bit more impactful had Fievel? Because of course, at a certain point in the movie, basically towards the very end, where he doesn't have to wait that long, where he abandons all hope, like, no, they don't care about me, they didn't seek me out at all.
Okay, that I will say that scene with the jerk mice, that was really out of place and would have worked better if he was dealing with characters like that the whole movie.
Hmm.
And maybe Tony was like the one mouse that wasn't like that. I don't know. Just
Sure.
spitballing here to give the movie more teeth.
What I'm saying is, if that happened a little earlier in the movie, let's say that was the low of lows of Act Two per se. Let's say he gave up, and then we get into an Act Three where it's just kind of like, I'm not saying I don't know how it precisely would work, but I'm saying like this moment happens, then like less than 5 minutes later, okay, there's the family again.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
So,
I definitely have an issue with that as well.
but no, in all seriousness, I do kind of like the basically what I like about the hope parallel is that again there's parallel to the hope for the American dream versus the conflict with the cats, where again they're kind of making the American dream hopeless, and that you go all this way, and then it's like you've moved to a worse place. It's kind of like it's kind of what we're combating there. So it's Fievel's hope versus the family's despair with the American dream. So it's kind of I think they balance each other out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I will say that, of course, the reunion scene itself. Oh my God, one of the most cathartic moments in history of animation, Dragon.
Oh, you betcha.
I mean, that right there is like the definitive, like, look up the textbook definition of Bluth's philosophy of like you can throw the audience through as much dark shit as possible as long as there's a happy ending on the other side.
Oh yeah.
That right there is like the best example in Bluth's entire catalog of the happy ending on the other side.
Yeah. One of my favorite symbols in the movie, I love, and again, this is playing with the setting of again 1885. You're like in early 19th century stuff, well, late 19th century stuff, I guess. I love the Statue of Liberty being constructed. I love that as a symbol of the movie, where again, in earning the happy ending, the Statue of Liberty, the representation of the American dream, but especially the American immigrant, the American dream for the immigrant. Like the full build, of course, Ellis Island, the whole shebang. Basically, the Statue of Liberty is a huge symbol there, and of course, given to us by people who are not American. Big
Sure.
Statue of Liberty. Again, I love that as a symbol, and of course, it's kind of like our happy-go-lucky kind of song, kind of champion hope with Henri the Le Pigeon. That guy. Christopher Plummer's pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, I guess I love that as listening by basically hope gets constructed by the end of the movie, and it's kind of a nice symbol through and through. And of course, I like how the symbol of that statue, basically the pigeon who is deemed kind of the mayor of this. By the way, essentially, he's like basically like a pigeon taking ownership of a statue, which I love it when you go with the obvious joke that of course is going to mark his territory. But I love more so the fact that it's a pigeon that legitimately took pride in what this Statue of Liberty represent. I thought that was so ingenious. And then we had. It was nice, I guess. I like that versus kind of Warren T. Rat, who of course is someone who's kind of perverting the American dream. So those two kind of ideas in conflict, two representations of what the American dream could be and should be versus what it will be at its worst. Again, represented by these two characters that Fievel is going to come in conflict with, kind of a nice little stranger we kind of pass by, and then of course our villain of the piece. That's nice.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Anything else to talk about? I think we've pretty much covered our bases with the story.
Yeah, I think we're all good there. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Fievel. Let's beyond just the iconic design, Dragon. I mean, I think the voice is also iconic. I think, like I said, the expressions, the facial expressions. Oh my God! Like I don't even want to call them memes, Dragon. Like they are beyond memes. They're just like classic pieces of character animation here, all throughout this movie.
That they are one of the great examples of what do you do with a character wears a hat. He's going to be fiddling with that hat the whole movie, and he does. I love the symbol of the hat, too. I love the hat, and of course it's been in the Moskowitz family for many generations. It was passed down to him on Hanukkah. It's a nice... It's a good idea.
Great way to open the movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, basically Fievel's character is very naive and adventurous. He's a naive, adventurous lad, one might say. It's like he's basically his downfall is that he's easily distracted by sightseeing. It's like he can never like wait for the other people. It's like he's kind of a. It's like
He is a rather frustrating character in that regard. I'm saying, like, from an animation point of view, he's great. I can see why he's iconic, but from a story point of view, he's a little frustrating.
yeah, it's like you don't hate him or anything. But it's like, oh, come on,
Right,
kid.
right.
Like, just stay in one place, would you? But I like
I
the
mean, even the stuff like on the boat, like with Fievel just asking a million questions. Like, okay, Fievel, like, obviously it's supposed to represent a kid in a dire circumstance, but I mean, these people are dying, man. Come on.
yeah. I completely forgot about this until I rewatched the movie. How do you feel about the giant mouse of Minsk?
Oh my God, there are no words, Dragon. There are no words. It is one of the most horrifying things that Don Bluth has ever fucking drawn into existence. I am not even kidding. I mean, I didn't even remember that. I'm willing to bet it was honestly like a suppressed childhood memory, Dragon. I'm willing to bet that. Because there's no way I saw that as a kid and wasn't scared by it, all right? I think I was scared so much by it that I legitimately just blocked it out.
I just had
I
no
mean,
recollection at all. I got nothing.
I don't know, man. But seen as an adult, like even as an adult, it looks freaking terrifying. Like it's the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, I wasn't terrified at all by this. I thought it was kind of cool looking. But then again, I
Really.
guess I don't know. Again, might be a childhood thing versus now because I wasn't. I don't know because again, I thought it was cool looking. Like seeing how it was built and everything, see the mechanisms. But
I
again, I might
didn't
be just
think it was
looking at it
cool. I
now.
mean, it was cool looking from like a stylistic point of view, but I clearly thought it was like designed to be scary, Dragon. You
It
didn't get
it's
that?
designed to be. Look, I mean, I know it's designed to be scary to the cats, but I'm just saying, like, it looked kind of like a parade float. That's the thing. To me, this looks like a parade float.
All right, all right. I don't know. This is weird because when I saw that, I was just like, "Oh dear God, what pit of hell have I entered into?"
I mean, I think the lighting is what does that, Tiki. But yeah, I think the lighting out of the equation is like, oh, it's just a parade float. I mean, look,
All right.
here's it's indicative. I mean, if I'm gonna be straight with it, I mean, again, I get they're going for kind of like a Bugs Life thing, where okay, it's like we have the bird scaring the enemy there. It's kind of like
Uh-huh.
kind of the reverse Trojan horse, as it were. We're going to use this to scare the enemy. That's sort of the idea. I mean, the big thing I want to specify with the giant mouse admits is more the mythology of it. Again, this is what inspires Five to be so adventurous. Remember, this kid's also running into trouble a lot of the time. It's like he's going after the cats. We're no, you idiot, go away from the cats.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. I guess the question through the movie with the hopeless idea is like, when is this kid going to lose hope? And he does, but kind of in an inopportune time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's not really too much to say other than, he's a little frustrating. I mean, I do think I don't want to say his voice acting is like great or anything, but it is iconic. It's an iconic performance.
Sure. All right.
All right. Okay, so the Moskowitz family. So let's start with Papa Dragon, because
Papa.
goddamn, what?
That's a dumb joke. It's like it's Travolta saying Papa. Papa.
Papa. Oh God.
It's basically Travolta. It's like Travolta playing Fredo, essentially. That's a dumb. It's like what if Travolta played Fredo from The Godfather when he fumbles the gun and like Papa.
Oh God. All right. Anyways, wow,
Anyway.
that was a tangent.
Well, you mentioned The Godfather earlier. Anyway, so Papa Moskowitz, seriously, great character.
I would say probably Dragon. If we were to redo our top 10 animated dads list, this guy needs to have a spot up there.
Look, as much as I love Papa Moskowitz, I got to be honest though, Five Goes West does not reflect kindly on Papa Moskowitz.
Yeah, it's not the best. It's not
He's
the
kind of a
best.
dope in that movie. The Moskowitz family are kind of a bunch of dopes in that movie. I'm sorry, they kind of are.
Okay,
But
Dragon,
here,
I'm going to say my favorite line of Papa's, and I am wondering if it is your favorite line, all right?
I think it's gonna be it. You say it.
Okay. In America, there are no cats.
Great line, not remotely the one I was talking about, but that's a great line, though.
Dragon, I'm just saying, like, only Don Bluth could make a line like that have such emotional heft. You know what I mean?
I love that it's a doomed line. I love that it's like we the audience.
Exactly.
Whether it be at the 1800s or not, I mean, whether you think, well, yeah, America has cats. I'm sure it had cats back then, so I think he's kind of doomed. So again, it's like the sadness. Again, it's also kind of a little commentary on the, again. I don't forget, folks. I mean, the statement of the evening is probably going to be it's the American dream. It's symbol. It's a commentary on the American dream.
But to me, the ultimate commentary on that, the whole in America, there are no cats, is there's always going to be prejudice. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And that's why I think that line is so deep and so profound.
And again, he says it with such, he knows this. It's like, in America, there are no cats.
Uh-huh.
For me,
what is your favorite line, though? Please.
My favorite line is the most heartbreaking thing in the movie. I mean, this pulverizes you somewhere out there. I don't care anyone says, like, somewhere out there. Like, screw that noise, man. Kick it to the curb with this moment here.
God, all these 80s kids are just going to be like, what the hell do these millennials have against somewhere out there?
Well, it's nice, but, somewhere out there has had its day because it's glossing over moments like this. Moments like basically the immigration office where they arrive.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was where you were going.
They move there, and it's the animation, the delivery, the whole thing. Where basically they have to go to the immigration course. This is where we do this is hitting me on every level I love the movie with. Where again we're at the basically beneath Ellis Island. Presumably we have we have kind of the mouse version of Ellis Island, where basically they go up there, they're reassigned. See this whole sequence too, man. I just love the whole. We go to the immigration office, and the people on the top side, they're given like they're given the whole like, what's your name? This, et cetera, et cetera. And says, well, now your new name's Smith. Without the interplay I'm giving here, just saying like John Toskoyeski or something, and he would say like John Smith, and it's just like without any like no debate, nothing, just like John Smith, and you have to move along. It's that element of it too. And then we go down, and we have the Moskowitz family, Moskowitz. 5. No. 4. This is like, no, I was mistaken. 4. Something along the lines of, how many, Moskowitz, how many? 5. Oh, wait. 4. And you just see the tears in his eyes and just the sadness and the father experiencing the loss just as he looks, as you see, then he goes off, and it's just again with that clerical, just like you give the answer and then you move on. He says 5, no 4, like breaks my heart into a billion pieces. Like, oh my god!
Not only that, but he just has to accept that his daughter is getting a completely new name. You know what I mean?
And yeah, like, the button to that scene.
Yeah, exactly. There's all these things that are just hitting him all at once.
It's a sandwich of a scene, my friend, because you have we have the ingenious parallel at the start of the scene. In the middle, we have the meat that is the tears in the father's eyes, like 5, no 4. And as he moves on without missing a beat, we don't linger on it at all. Just like Tanya's name is changed to Tilly. Dad, why is my name Tilly? And this we don't acknowledge it. We just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and again it's brilliant, brilliant and tragic, man.
Oh yeah,
but aside from our moments with Papa, I mean, Papa on the whole, though, again, thankfully we have the better Papa in this movie than we do with Five Goes West.
I love the design, I love the voice, I love pretty much everything about him in this movie.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Spielberg loved this guy. I'm sure. Again, the passing down the hat we mentioned already. He's a guy he's kind of burdened by setbacks. It's kind of his the family and the whole, but especially Papa. He's the guy who he had this dream. He said let's move the family there, and you can sense the inner pain of moved my family here at the cost of my own son, and it's just setback after setback. They have a crappy place to stay in. It's they're clinging to hope, and again, it's as they lose hope again. Fievel is maintaining hope, and of course, it kind of flip flop things in a really interesting way. So, really great parallels going on there.
All right. Okay, I think the rest of the Moskowitz family should understandably go by pretty lightning fast, right?
Yeah, we have Mama Moskowitz. She's pretty much she's kind of the strict one of the parents, but doting in a loving way. She means well.
I mean, your average Jewish mom, and I don't say that in a bad way at all.
Not necessarily Beverly Goldberg entertaining, but you know.
God. Well, Dragon, few women on this earth can be Beverly Goldberg entertaining, and most of those women's names start with Vera.
That is true. That is true.
God. Cult of Vera.
Cult of Formiga.
God. I feel like Cult of Vera is more personal, Dragon. It's more personable.
The Vera Brigade.
Yes, yes. Anyways, oh god.
The Galactic Vera Alliance.
All right, you know what? This is my bucket list. This is literally my bucket list podcast, and we're putting Formiga in jokes in. All right, let's get off of this. I know I'm the one that brought it up.
You did. At least Goldberg was relevant. Okay. All right, anyways, the point being, also she has a prop baby, so let's mention that with Mama Mouse.
Prop baby, yay!
Prop baby.
It's more realistic than the baby from American Sniper.
That is true, and you see him moving the babies on it. It's ridiculous. The Clint Eastwood movies aside, let's talk about Tanya. Tanya is the big breakout star, man. Tanya got a bigger role in the sequel because of this.
Yeah, and in this movie, she doesn't really have a ton to do, but I do like that she is the one who is holding out hope within the family. You know what I mean? She does represent that through line of the narrative within Fievel.
It's such a haunting moment when just Papa Moskowitz, he's saying, no, many other people have the name Fievel, where he just immediately he's given up all hope, where Tanya's the optimist in the family. She's just like,
I'll give you another haunting moment. Probably Mama Moskowitz's most haunting moment is early on when Tanya's like, "Mama, I just feel that Fievel's alive," and then Mama Moskowitz is just like, "That feeling will pass in time."
oh man, yeah, you're right.
It's like as if that's supposed to be a comfort for Tanya. You know what I mean?
Of course, Tanya's faith is the reason we find Fievel in the end, so good on Tanya.
And she, Dragon. I don't consider many of the iconic moments in this movie to be memes, but I will go as far as to say somewhere out there, definitely a meme at this point.
I would imagine so, yes.
Anyways. All right. Okay. Anyone else in the Moskowitz family? Are we like forgetting like a third brother or something like that?
Well, I mentioned the baby's a prop, so I think we've already acknowledged the baby.
Okay.
Prop baby. No, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. I'm just saying, like that second girl in Secret of Nim really threw me through a loop, Dragon. How pointless she was. All right. So let's move on to Tiger. Dragon, say what you will about Fievel Goes West, but you got to admit Tiger has a better role in Fievel Goes West than he does in this movie.
I told you, Act 3 of that movie, that's all the Tiger stuff, man. Act 3 is like, that's all the good stuff. That's all like Tiger becoming the cowboy, man. That's my favorite part of that movie. So I love Tiger, man. He's awesome.
I was kind of surprised how little screen time Tiger and Fievel actually have in this movie, Dragon, because like I said, my nostalgia for the series is mostly Fievel Goes West, where they're pretty much best buddies at the start of it. And in this movie, they really just kind of like meet up, have one conversation, sing one song, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's a beautiful start. It's so cute seeing the beginning of the friendship. Like, oh, that's how they met. Isn't that cute? You know, it's like, years later, it's like, look, you remember, like, Tiger was in the movie, kind of feel like, oh yeah, he only had one scene, but it was a good scene though.
Well, he has that scene, and then he has the scene at the end where he's there. I do like the fact that he has a plot function helping them.
He reunites the family.
Yeah. So that's good. That's good.
Of course, so Dom DeLuise charmed for days again. So he's basically kind of the good luck charm of Don Bluth. I'm trying to remember which ones. Here's the thing: good luck charm to an extent. I mean, Troll in Central Park, that's going to be a little dicey.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
But you know what I mean. The point, Dom DeLuise, he showed up a lot in the Dom Bluth movies, and for a good reason, because Dom DeLuise is just, he rocks, man. He does. I love that he's a nice guy in with the wrong crowd here. He's big and imposing, but we learned that the man's just, he's all softness. He's all soft and fluffy, literally. Well, as well as emotionally too. The man's the guy's a teddy bear practically. We learned that it's such an adorable moment when he reveals to Fievel that he's a vegetarian, and you know what he likes? Guess what he likes?
Cats.
No. Ruining my broccoli moment, but like broccoli.
Okay, I'm sorry. I like the moment where he says like, "No, I like cats," and then Fievel just starts crying. No, not in that way.
Where do you no? He says I like mice. He says, "Oh no." It's because he thinks it's
No,
gonna
I'm
be
sorry. Slip of the tongue, dragon. I meant to say I like mice, not I like cats. I'm sorry.
yeah,
It's
that
been
movie
a
hasn't even
long
come
work
out yet.
day. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. Just say that movie hasn't even come out yet.
All right.
No, but yeah, you're right. It's a great moment. That's what I'm talking about, man. And then he goes into the whole like, what I like, occasional fish. But you know what I really like? Guess some broccoli.
Broccoli.
I don't know why. Is Don always sell the crap out of broccoli? I don't know why. He's made it sound so whimsical.
If Dom DeLuise was Bing Bong in Inside Out, he would teach Riley all about the value of broccoli.
You would, and if Don DeLuise was alive, he would have played that role. He
Oh,
would.
you absolutely, no question. That's like the running joke of Bing Bong that will always persist.
Oh,
It
hey,
feels so much like a Dom DeLuise role.
real quick, just because we're talking about Don DeLuise, real quick. Hey, you
Yes.
remember when we talked about Megas XLR?
Yeah, I do.
Remember, Coop? That's Don DeLuise's son. I believe it's Don DeLuise.
Don DeLuise. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right. So yeah, basically it's an uplifting friendship in a hopeless situation that Fievel finds himself in. Just kind of Fievel kind of bumping into strangers here. Turned out really well. It's a real neighborly quality. I would argue this with the friendship with Tiger would be representative of the neighborly quality to New York and kind of America in the broad sense. The idea of like there's always kind of a brotherly sense of New York where sometimes you bump into strangers. Most of the time it's gonna be out of the way. Other half of the time it's gonna
I'm
be
walking here.
exactly. Other times it's gonna be the you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
You fuck with Spider-Man, you fuck with all of fucking New York.
Well, that's the other way of looking at it, but sure.
That'd be the real New Yorker way of handling that scene.
True, but seriously, it's like
According
the five. That's the beautiful thing about New York. Just the five boroughs, man. Those are the five boroughs. You know what I mean?
to
The boroughs know, like I love the boroughs are like these continents within New York, man. It's awesome. So the point is, like, everybody knows somebody. It's like, where are you? The old Brooklyn Queens of it all. Where are you from? Brooklyn, Queens. That whole thing. And of course, the first friendly cat versus all these monstrous cats that we saw too. By the way, so that's also kind of a big thing Tiger has in his favor. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about Tony.
And
Dragon, I have such a perfect comparison for Tony, and I feel like you might have the same comparison. And if you haven't thought about this yet, I think you might think I'm a genius. All right, Tony is good Lampwick.
Oh my god.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
I'm so stupid. How did I not
I knew you'd think I was smart for thinking of that.
Yes. Yeah, because I had the Pinocchio. I feel so stupid because I had the Pinocchio parallel.
The Pinocchio. Exactly.
How did I not? I'm so stupid.
Tony is like the wayward kid, but he's actually a good kid. He doesn't fuck Pinocchio over in this version.
I think it was the stupid. I think it's the fact the sweatshop lasted so little. I didn't put that. I'm stupid. You're right. Yes, he is good Lampwick. Yes.
Good Lampwick.
Yes. Awesome. Yes, he is good. Okay. Pinocchio point. Okay. But yeah, so where do you want us to start with Tony here?
I mean, honestly, literally, my only note for him is good Lampwick.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean,
it kind of begins. I mean, not for nothing. I do like that Tony gives Fievel his American name, and it's like a name built out of affection and not authority. That I think is probably. I think that's probably his strongest role in the movie is just giving him the name.
See, my big thing with Tony and the whole gang was that they're more so just kind of the indicative of the whole melting pot cultural thing. It's the idea like they're the other. Basically, we think about Tony and his friends. Tony with Bridget and basically the rest like Gussie Mousenheimer and Honest John. Those four characters overall. they're all very much, they're kind of different takes on the immigrant story. Of course, you have the Italians, you have the Irish, and you kind of have the upper crust in between. Like Gussie Mouseheimer, I believe the thing is that she was a German mouse, and the idea is that they've all her status. I don't know if Wealth followed her when she kind of immigrated or what. Point being, she built up her status. She's the top tier. You have again. Let me put it this way.
I like that idea for a character with Gussie. I will say she is my least favorite character in the movie by a pretty substantial margin, just because I hate the voice.
Basically, overall, with all of this here, even Tony, I think they're all a double-edged sword that works out with some better than others. They're all very stereotypical, but I don't mean that in a fully negative way. They are stereotypical, but
they're
again,
stereotypical, but they're stereotypical in a way that's just meant to evoke, like, oh, I know that culture.
Yeah, remember, again, 19th century. So,
sure,
again, the movie, the whole thing is kind of about this. You have to start there with the stereotype.
right.
It's kind of unavoidable. But in some, there's a little bit more to the character, so I kind of respect. Like, for example, Bridget. Bridget, we have kind of our activists, kind of the Irish flower activists, if you will.
Oh.
In the sense of Bridget, she's the one speaking out against the cats, very much kind of in that. But we also have the Irish drunk in the form of Honest John, which is maybe a little unflattering,
Yeah, Honest John is the one that I think could have been cut from this movie entirely.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not gonna lie.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I don't think it's culturally insensitive or anything. I just don't think he adds anything to the story. Literally, his only role is nope, sorry, kid, haven't seen your parents.
He's supposed to be not the mayor, but he's supposed to be like a politician. That's the idea. Sounds like a guy who'd probably be running for mayor or something.
I mean, I got that, but I didn't get the point.
I know, and you're right, because
I don't
again,
know why he's there.
Basically, the question is: do we have Honest John, or do we have?
I mean, Gussie is just a matter of I don't like the voice, but at least she makes sense from a plot point of view,
And you're right. That's what I'm saying. Basically, one or the other. Only, I guess the sense is again maybe they wanted to pad out. Get it? He's Irish. No, I don't mean that negatively, but maybe just pad that out just in case. We're showing the melting pot, and again, I'm not mad at the stereotype thing. I'm just saying I think that is kind of it's kind of one of those rare exceptions.
I'm not mad at the stereotype. I just think the character is pointless. That's what it comes down to, Dragon. Stereotypes have nothing to do with it.
I know. I just want to point that that's so quaint that we can have that and not be a problem for a change,
Right. Well, it's probably I don't want to go down the political rabbit hole, Dragon. I don't want to go there.
The point being, it's not as bad as it would be in some other films, let's say.
No, you're right. I'm just saying there's people out there who would look at this movie and make those assumptions.
Certainly. And the point being, again, the big takeaway again is that we create the American landscape as we know it, which is stemming from these cultures. That's the big takeaway, that we get to see the beginnings of what makes New York, and what broadly kind of makes America. Through these characters, and also in a sense, if you want to be all patriotic about it, you can look at it in a sense of they all come together to kind of fight off kind of corruption and essentially terrorism.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Speaking of which, let's talk about Warren T. Raft.
I love this guy as a character, Dragon. He's a great villain.
Yeah.
I definitely think he's a step above what's his name from The Secret of NIMH.
It's had all the J names. It's I believe
Jenner.
Yes, Jenner. That's the one.
A character that I literally forget is in that movie half the time.
I think Jenner has style. This guy's a better villain, yes, but I think Jenner has style though.
Whatever, man. I love this guy, dude. First of all, I love that his rat persona is basically the original Chuck E. Cheese. Kind of just hey kids, want to come into my gambling room?
God. It's funny, even the villain in the next one, when he puts on his mouse persona, he too is very Chuck E. Cheese-esque. Now you bring it up.
Wait, the villain in the next one's mouse persona?
Yeah, in the sequel, remember you have
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the next one that we have coming up in Bluth-Tember, and I got very confused. I was like, wait a minute, what villain has a mouse persona in The Land Before Time?
No. With Caterwall, basically they kind of ripped off.
No, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was just a that was just an amusing communication error.
Again, in bringing up Five Goes West yet again, folks. The villain in that
It's
movie.
inevitable.
Villain in that movie, he pretty much they ran out of ideas in terms of they ripped off even the name gag. Okay, Warren T. Rats, Caterwall. It's they do that and they make him like he's just literally has a puppet of a mouse, which is even less convincing than what we had in the other movie. So it's like, yeah, we ran out of ideas. So I mean that's ingenious though. I love it's basically a cat and rat's clothing.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that it's like this dude is very much perverting the American dream in a real way.
Yeah.
In a fundamental way.
He's been, and of course, he's a very street. I love how ground and street, basically kind of street level he is. He's very much kind of a New York shyster and a con man kind of a guy. Basically, he's like he's kind of a burgeoning crime boss, kind of a small time crime boss who is trying to get more power. So he's very much like what's again the corruption that would take shape and kind of like basically kind of wreck the American dream as it would go on, essentially.
Right.
What do you think about his accountant?
I was about to bring him up, Dragon, voiced by Will Ryan, who is another famous Don Bluth standby.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, Dragon, Will Ryan is almost as much of a voice of Don Bluth as Dom DeLuise is. I swear it's just because his voice is just so distinct. You know what I mean?
That it is.
Of course, his most iconic character is Petrie, which we'll get to in the next movie. But I don't know. I don't really have much notes on the character other than like, hey, it's the genesis of Will Ryan and Don Bluth's working relationship. That's neat.
Well, again, you also have another culture in there. You have England. You have, essentially kind of an English, basically kind of an efficiency guy.
Sure.
All right. So basically, you have a guy take one other thing with Warren T. Rat, unless you got anything else.
Well, I just love the way that he, that he gets kind of like progressively more monstrous as the movie goes on. With the cat thing, his mouse qualities get stripped away.
Yeah, I think what's so twisted about him is that again he's taking advantage of kind of the recent immigrants, like essentially selling them to the sweatshops and everything, is profiting off them. He's so, he's so such a rotten guy.
Yeah. Okay, so with all the characters out of the way, Dragon, it's time to play a game. Let's see, what do we want to play? Do we want to play Hungry Hippos, Dragon?
Nah, hippos smell.
Do we want to play Operation?
Dude, it's too scary.
What about Perfection?
It's too Courage the Cowardly Dog-esque.
Oh, wait, Dragon, I know! Let's play Bluth or Dare!
2000!
I appreciate that reference.
Let's rebrand it. Let's make the physical shinier. Let's let about some of the stuff like kind of like some of the artistry, some of the stamps of Bluth, as it were.
Right. Okay, well, we already kind of mentioned a lot of it, like just kind of like how hopeless the separation feels, the fact that they're willing to let the family believe that the child has died and not just a Finding Nemo situation of the child is missing, but he's obviously still alive. I think that is definitely a bold choice, to be sure. Like I said, Dragon, I think we hit a point where I definitely feel like this movie is all the more timely now. Like, I feel like this movie is more relevant now, given the current political climate and the immigration issues at play. And Dragon, this movie is the thing that you want to like show kids to teach them about immigration and the American dream. You know what I mean? Because this is like, it's not propaganda by any means, but it's powerful. It's powerful and it's effective, but it's not trying to take one side or the other, because it does show the corrupt side of of the immigration community, and it doesn't hold back in that regard. But by the same token, it's just an absolute like celebration. Watch on the goddamn 4th of July movie, like America, fuck yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really just think that all those themes, I think themes are the best part of this movie. Would you agree? Just the thematic qualities of this film.
Hey, you heard me earlier, man. Thematically, this movie is very tight with thematicism, and I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. I feel like the story structure should be simpler than it is. That's about as far as I'll break it down. I feel like we've already talked about that. Like it should there should be less jumping around and episodic qualities to it, at least from
Look.
Pfeiffer's point of view.
There are some logistical things. Like I know we don't spend a lot of time there, but logistically, how would this whole sweatshop thing really work? When you really ask these questions, like, well, here's the thing. Look, I want to make it clear. I think Bluth. Basically, I can't remember how long it's gonna. I guess after All Dogs, I think it's gonna break down after a while. I'm just trying to remember, but I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. All Dogs was. I mean, a lot of people argue that it started to break down with All Dogs. Frankly,
Well, no. What I mean is, what's breaking down is like the conceit of like we're mixing the two worlds together, and we have like logistically how exactly would this work? Like that's what I'm talking about. I think after All Dogs, I think Bluth gets away from doing kind of the dual world angle.
yeah, not necessarily because Rockadoodle technically does blend the real world with the animated world.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess
one of the many reasons why I find Rockadoodle to be one of the more fascinating things in Bluth's filmography.
Fair enough, but that's an evolution of the idea. That's two worlds. I'm trying to focus on here is like again within the same world. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. What I mean is you have two worlds operating within the same space. That's what I mean. Not like two worlds that are kind of being blended together. I mean, unless I'm misremembering Rockadoodle, which I quite possibly might be, by the way.
Oh, it's been forever since I've seen Rockadoodle, but that movie just fascinates me to no end.
Again, that's the real world meets the animated world, Rockadoodle, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like within the.
I do think the animated world interacts with the real world and vice versa.
Well, sure, but you say, again, saying within the anime, we're like Secret of Nim, where you have the farm and you have the what's going on beneath that, and with All Dogs, you're going to have kind of what's going on with the dogs versus just kind of your average Joe walking around.
What about Land Before Time?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Land Before Time. I'm just saying. I think over time, I think All Dogs might be the last example with him. Can you think of anything beyond All Dogs that does like another kind of All Dogs or?
Oh God, probably not.
That's what I'm saying.
Like Anastasia is his best movie after All Dogs, but that's basically just a carbon copy Disney musical. Pebble and the Penguin, Troll in Central Park, Thumbelina, no thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
Titan AE, like maybe the relationship between like Earth and its inhabitants, maybe.
Well, I mean, I mean that. All right, well. Okay, the point being, I think All Dogs is kind of the capper when he gets away from that sort of stuff. What I'm getting at is I love that, again, we see that evolving style within, again, the animals mixed in with kind of with the world we're at, and we're saying something about it. And we continue to do that here. So, again, that's still just tremendously...
Okay, I will definitely say that All Dogs is the last movie to do that, for sure.
There you go. And that's what I'm saying. I think in the beginning, honestly, if I'm looking at it really clearly, American Tail, I think thematically got the most ambitious with it. Secret of Nim probably did it best, but American Tail, logistically, we start to break down each movie.
Secret of Nim is easily like the better story. You know what I mean? Like that movie has no lulls. Like that movie is like pretty much on fire from the word go.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I think it gets more difficult each time, where, again, it gets ambitious with American Tail, but then you start getting that breakdown of like, oh, yeah, well, maybe logistically we can't have a sweatshop that operates beneath the other sweatshop. Maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Exactly, and that's where I think this movie kind of starts to, like, it's a great foundation, but the foundation's a little shaky. But it's a pretty foundation.
But again, with what they're doing with the broader scope of what they're doing with that, with, again, the immigration of all, that's an ingenious idea, but when you get into the specifics, you start, like, when you think about it too much, again, if you don't think about it too much, it's brilliant. But again, when you really put it under a microscope, I don't know. Like, for example, I'll tell you one. So again, I love the Warren T. Rat reveal, for example. I love that idea. Genius idea. I think with the animation, I know a lot of it's probably intentional and artistic, but by the same token, tell me if I'm crazy here. Is it just me or is Warren T. Rat? I know he gets away from the look that he has, but the conceit kind of defeats itself. Where the scale's really off. I think the scale goes really off.
Oh, the scale on Warranty Rat is absolutely off, Dragon. I won't fight you on that at all. It's crazy off. There's no doubt about it.
It's got unless it's an artistic pull, then it's real. Even so, I mean, even if it's an artistic pull,
honestly, I just think it was kind of like a story thing that there was no way to really work around. You know what I mean? They really kind of had to make his scale off.
Precisely, and that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Overall, that's kind of the big
Dragon. I gotta be honest with you. With some of the scale on Warranty Rat, I kind of had a little bit of a Cats vibe. I'm not even joking.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That overall, again, I don't mean to just go back to my other point there, but again, it's the fact that things begin to break down here as it gets more ambitious. Where again, scale was done perfectly in Secret of NIMH, but here we're getting ambitious. But again, at the same, we kind of compensate some of our foundation when we do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Should we talk about the music?
I don't think this is like. I think the songs are, Somewhere Out There is iconic, and I don't want to badmouth it anymore. It has its place in the movie for sure, and it is effective.
Oh, look, it's a nice song. It's just, that's not what I don't think. It's more
just because it's overplayed doesn't mean it's bad, Dragon.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's it's like I think it's really, it goes down the Hall of Fame being the first really big emotional song in an emotional movie, like one of the not that's a terrible way of putting it, but you know what I mean. It's like one of those.
It's a big like emotional ballad, Dragon, is what it is.
That's the thing. It's a ballad. It's one of the original ballads.
I would say it is one of the original ballads for sure.
There you go. I think it was like an unfamiliar concept at the time, I guess, is the more... overall, too, we're doing a historically set film for kids, which, again, imagine pitching that to an executive. Like, I want to do a movie set in 1885!
Right.
It's about immigration! I don't know. Has mice in it? No, mice are big this year, so okay.
It was a totally different time.
It was. James Horner did the score on this.
I don't think the score is quite as effective as some of the other Horner Bluth scores. What do you think?
Yeah, I hear that. I'm not a huge Horner guy.
I can't even put my finger on why. I think Horner's best score is definitely Land Before Time. We'll get there soon enough.
I remember that tracks. That's a good score. I always go to, for me, the infamous Horner score for me is the Amazing Spider-Man score. Just didn't.
That's not a good one. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, because it's like they had a few themes, but it's Tiki. It always singles out to one moment when Spider-Man is about to run with all the cranes. I know how you feel about the cranes. We need to get into how you feel about the cranes, but when he's about to run to all the cranes and save the day. It's like we pull back and it's like, okay, whether you buy into it or not, okay, Spider-Man's about to do some web swinging to save the day. All right. And if we could have just borrowed the Danny Elfman theme one time, just one time instead of the da-na-na-na. Right. It's like, oh, man, James. Anyway, unfortunately, I believe Horner's passed by now, but still, he did a lot of other great work, though. Spider-Man not his best. Anywho. Let's see. Again, in terms of duos, I love a duo. And speaking of the animation in a duo as well, I thought about the animation in some of these scenes too. A duo has a really great... This is a proper use of scale, my friend, where it's a fun visual sequence. We have this really great gag where Fievel and Tiger, they're dancing, and we see the reflection in this little in a mirrored surface.
Yeah.
And they are the same size in that. And that to me, okay, that's an artistic liberty I can buy. Yes, and it's a delightful scene. It's a cutesy song. It's Don Bluth singing, so I'm on board for that. I also like the Never Say Never song. And I think it kind of comments with the masses.
I do like the Never Say Never song. I think that one's pretty well constructed. It's got a good hook to it, and I like the optimistic lyrics. That one was a standout for me.
And again, look, we didn't dedicate a lot of time. We didn't dedicate any time to that character, but I do like the pigeon character. I already reminded my reasons why in the story, so I like that.
I mean, honestly, he kind of feels like another character, like Honest John, where I feel like there's more they could have done with him.
That's a fair point. But at least I think compared to Honest John, we do more with the.
A little bit more, but not that much more.
Well, at least we gave him a song.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Gave him a song and he helped the kid out there before he did stuff. The other guy's just like, hey, here's the drunk in the room, and there's the lady who's actually doing this stuff. Okay.
Yeah, Honest John. It's just like, oh, we can go to Honest John. He knows where everyone is. No, I don't know where they are.
So
That's literally all his role.
the way we animate the monstrous cats, again, the Cossacks being the standout sequence, that's the way we shadow them in the lighting.
Uh,
That's the genius thing. We give them like a roar, like make them like lions on 2 feet
we already
lions.
mentioned this, but I love the demons and the waves. That's one of those like almost kind of like subconscious things that I don't even think I noticed as a kid.
Oh yeah, again, the giant mouse Minsk
Ugh.
can look terrifying, but also really cleverly invented. Let's see. Okay, with the animation, a little facto about the animation. So they used a new technique on this. So again, this is Don Bluth kind of changing up how he's doing the animation. He used, I want to butcher how this is pronounced, xerography. And there's I think, hey, I got it right. Well,
Xerography,
xerography
yeah, that's right.
essentially is photocopying meets rotoscoping, which kind of basically the way of
Uh-huh.
kind of making rotoscoping a little easier, a little bit more like copy and paste, if you will, for the time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, final thoughts from my end, Dragon. I very much enjoyed revisiting this. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have watched it a second time just to get more out of it. I think it's a fascinating piece of just just culture, man. It's very rich. Like we already said, I think the themes are very much the strong suit of this movie. I feel like it does a lot of things emotionally. It really doesn't pull back punches emotionally. It really kind of lets you sit in the character's misery. And I know I'm saying that like it's a miserable time, but I mean it gives the story like way more pathos. But having said that, I definitely don't think this is as perfect of a movie as something like The Secret of Nim or The Land Before Time. And getting to The Land Before Time, folks, that is definitely my white whale of this whole Bluth-Tember thing. That is Dragon. I go on and on about Land Before Time, right?
Yeah, and me, I'm the same way, but with all dogs. I've been waiting to get to all dogs
And
for a
I love
long
All
time.
Dogs as well. Don't get me wrong. I have mad nostalgia for All Dogs as well. But I'm saying Land Before Time, I think is just unequivocally a masterpiece. I mean, I really think that thing just holds up like fine wine. I mean, I watch that thing at least once a year.
Yeah, I've been trying to get us to do all dogs since Burt Reynolds' passing. Man, I've been wanting to do that one.
And I've always said like we need to save All Dogs for a blue theme month, and here we
And
are. At the
yes, here
last.
we are.
All right, final thoughts on your end, Dragon.
The final thoughts of mine. This film again continues Bluth's almost Walt Disney-esque odyssey in a way. This is like, think about this. He did a Snow White with Secret of Nim, which impressed everyone technically and people within the industry, I'm sure. Again, this is like that was the wake up call in a sense of like, hey guys, you gotta be doing better, man. Look at what we did off to the side here. Not a lot of people care about it, but hey guys, come on. And we have American Tail as Don Bluth's Pinocchio in many senses of the word here, and this is kind of the foray into the
Except for the
commercial world.
fact that Pinocchio flopped.
Well, okay, well, all right, yes, yeah, you're.
It's Don Bluth's Cinderella, Dragon, alright? I'm gonna say
Yeah,
it, yeah. It's Don Bluth's Cinderella.
yeah. It's okay, fine. It's this. Whether you want to like the literal look, story wise, it's Pinocchio, but performance wise, Cinderella.
I'm
Sure.
saying with your analogy, like the analogy that you were trying to make right now, Cinderella works better than Pinocchio.
Sure, but it's the second one out of the gate too.
Alright, I'm sorry. I'm
You're no, you're right. You're the
Pinocchio was a pretty infamous flop, Dragon. It kind of pretty much sunk all the success that Snow White had.
What I'm saying is okay. I'm aware. Look, I was aware of the. I was
Sorry,
trying to.
I'm going down like freaking like technical like fine print avenue here, Jake Dragon. Please excuse me.
All right, fine. Just to spell it out a smidge. All right. So if Don Bluth's Snow White is Secret and Nim, then is Pinocchio in the sense of it becoming a classic.
All right, there we go. There we go.
Years later.
All right.
Would be kind of that foray into the kind of that sense of success, and kind of the success, kind of in a sense dipping a toe into the commercial world in terms of a success, more like years later success, but you know what I mean. The priorities for this are basically the priorities are correctly focused on the film here. I see, but there are definitely hints of like we're trying to compete with Disney. there in a sense. I think there are hints of that in the story. I'm not saying that it hurts the movie at all, but I think there are hints of, we're trying to enter big game animation. We have Spielberg on our side. Maybe we're I like to think that Bluth's not thinking in that sense, but I don't know 100%. I think Bluth's just trying to make a movie. And again, the story is there. I think that's where Bluth's head's at, and I feel just like in the editing. And basically, I feel what got in the way of this movie is getting the movie made. Which, from what I heard, is like there's a little bit of trial and error in terms of like, okay, well, how are we going to? We're gonna have to strip out some parts. Our runtime's there. We don't have enough money, despite having Spielberg in our corner. Like, how are we gonna make this happen? I feel like kind of leaves that missing element of the movie. The film,
Right.
Basically the film is pathos, and basically the film has pathos and half of a compelling story, one could say.
Right.
Basically half of a really compelling story. So it's kind of it's lacking, but it's very satisfying. And this you got a big takeaway of this film in closing years. This film started the animation arms race.
It did, absolutely.
Remember, this is way before DreamWorks. This is before you have the two studios competing against each other. It was this movie is the one like you kicked Disney while it was turned away. Like you punched, like sucker punched Disney. So it's like, boom, American Tail. Take that, Mouse Detective, and your creative name discrepancies. Take that. Right. Basil Baker.
What we did with American Tail? It's a tail, but it's also a tail. Take that.
While you guys were becoming a Jeopardy question, American Tail.
All right. It's a pretty good note to end on, Dragon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, folks, we've conquered the darkness and come out with a happy ending on the other side. That's all for now until our next installment of Bluth-Tember.
Bluth-Tember. 5, no 4.